Okay, this will be the December 2003 CSR at 2:25. Mr. Morton for the people.
I am the witness.
I am defense attorney Ms. Stone.
And I am defense attorney Mr. Baxter.
Nines.
Ready? Begin. I think the record should reflect that we are taking the deposition of Colleen Nichols. She is represented by counsel, is that right?
Yes, the witness has counsel, but he is not here today. It is my belief that she is only here as a precipient witness and not a party to the case at this time.
That's correct. I believe, however, that the witness was served with a subpoena for the taking of her deposition.
My firm set the deposition. I don't think that service was required because all the witnesses agreed to appear.
Let me just inquire of Ms. Nichols. Were you served a subpoena to be present today?
I don't believe so. I just received a letter and a phone call.
Counsel, I would like the record to reflect that my office telephoned first, and then we sent a follow-up letter with a copy of the notice of deposition.
My mistake. I thought the witness was not appearing voluntarily and required a subpoena. I apologize.
That's fine. I would just like to state for the record that Ms. Nichols, although not a party to this present action, may at some time in the future become a party to a different action arising out of the same incident, and that is why I told her to consider having counsel present at her deposition.
That is correct. She has retained an attorney to protect her interests, but has chosen not to have him here for this proceeding. Is that your understanding also, Ms. Nichols?
Yes, I don't anticipate a suit against me because I didn't hit anybody, but I did consult a lawyer to advise me on this matter, yes.
But you chose not to have a lawyer here today, right?
Yes, ma'am, since I am not a party to this action.
Well, I know that I have some questions for you, as I'm sure other counsel do as well. We will try not to keep you here all day.
I guess we should begin by stating appearances for the record.
Thank you. My name is Brian Morton, and I represent the plaintiff in this action, Sherry Hartford.
I am Stephen Baxter, and I am representing one of the named defendants, Andrew Stanford.
Yes, just for the record, I am Deborah Stone, representing Bob Workman, a defendant.
Before I begin my questioning, let me just inquire, Ms. Nichols, have you had sufficient time to read and sign the deposition preamble explaining the procedure we are going to follow today?
Yes, I believe so. I have signed it and dated it as well.
Let's just have it marked as an exhibit to the deposition, and then we will have it attached to the original.
Yes, that is usually my practice. Thank you. That will be the first exhibit to the Nichols Depot. If there is no objection, and since the witness has been sworn, I would like to commence questioning.
No objection. Please proceed.
Ms. Nichols, just relax and try to answer the questions posed to you. If you have any problems, just let us know, and we will allow you to take a break. Let us know if you don't understand any question.
All right, thank you. I'm ready.
Ms. Nichols, let's begin by having you state your full name for the record.
My name is Colleen Ann Nichols.
You have reviewed the preamble regarding the rules that we follow during the deposition, have you not?
Yes, I have.
Do you have any questions about that?
No, I understand the process, and I am ready to answer questions.
All right, then I will get right to it.
That's fine.
We will be asking you about an accident that occurred last year.
Okay.
All right, let's get to the heart of my questions then. Are you familiar with the events leading up to the pending lawsuit?
I believe so.
On the date of September 3 last year, were you a witness to an automobile accident involving numerous vehicles?
Yes, I was.
Do you remember approximately what time the accident occurred?
If I am not mistaken, it would be right before noon.
Is there a special reason why you recall the time?
Well, I know because I was on my way to an appointment and the time was getting close for me. I was supposed to be there at 12:30. Had it not been for the accident, I would have made it.
Okay, when you say approximately before noon, do you mean minutes before noon or hours before?
I mean it was approximately 11:45 or 11:50.
All right, now where were you traveling from on that particular date and that time?
I had left my home in Fullerton and was heading down Harbor Street towards the beach.
What was it that first attracted your attention to the fact that, well, strike that. Let me inquire about something else first. Were you driving or walking at the time of the accident?
I was inside my car. I was driving.
What is the make and model of your automobile?
At the time of the accident, I drove a Chevrolet sedan.
How long prior to the accident had you been driving that vehicle?
Excuse me, do you mean that specific day, or how long she had owned the sedan?
I asked how long she had been driving the car. If it wasn't clear, I meant that day.
How long had she been driving that car that day?
Yes.
You can answer the question.
I had errands to run and started doing that around 9 in the morning. I had made a couple stops, but I would say about 2 hours.
Is that the vehicle that you normally or regularly drive?
Yes.
Would you say that you are very familiar with that vehicle?
Objection vague. If you could be more specific as to what you mean by familiar.
Were you familiar with the way the car handled when you drove it?
Yes, I was.
Had you, prior to the accident, ever had a problem in operating your vehicle?
No, I had not. It really is a reliable car.
If you would, please describe what first attracted your attention to the fact that an accident was happening.
Well, I was approaching the intersection and I noticed that the car was not slowing down, even though the light was red for our direction.
Which car are you speaking of?
The defendant's car, I believe it is a Ford.
Do you know the make of the car?
I am not sure what you mean by that.
Counsel means what kind of vehicle it is, whether it was a truck or sedan, you know.
Oh, I am sorry. The make, I understand now. It was a red truck.
Where was the truck when you first noticed it?
I would estimate about half a block behind me.
All right, what directed your attention to the truck?
I just always look in my mirror when I begin to slow down, and that's how I saw it.
Pardon me, Mr. Baxter, I don't usually interrupt, but I would appreciate some clarification. I believe the witness just identified the vehicle as the defendant's truck, but we do have multiple parties in this lawsuit.
You are correct. I will clear that up.
Thank you.
The record would be more clear if we perhaps drew a diagram.
Well, I guess we can do that now, but...
I don't need a diagram unless the witness can't identify the different vehicles by their drivers.
It was just a suggestion.
Let me try to clear it up first.
All right.
Do you know who was driving that truck that was behind you approaching the intersection?
I believe that was Mr. Workman.
All right. Was he directly behind you when you first noticed him?
Correct.
What did you proceed to do then?
Well, he wasn't going to stop, so I changed lanes to get away from a collision.
Objection. Speculation as to whether he was going to stop.
That's the opinion of the witness. She can render her opinion.
The question was what happened next, not what her opinion is of what my client was or was not doing.
Your objection is noted for the record. Ms. Nichols, what did you do at that time when you saw that Mr. Workman was not going to stop for the red light?
Objection, leading and calling for a conclusion.
You can answer the question.
I changed lanes because, in my opinion, I didn't think he was going to stop and I didn't want to be involved.
Then what happened next that you recall?
I was proceeding to stop and I heard and saw the truck crash into the car that had been directly ahead of me before I switched lanes.
Would that be the Chevrolet automobile that Mr. Stanford was driving?
If Mr. Stanford was driving the blue car, yes, that would be the one.
Perhaps the record could reflect which automobile the parties were driving, and that way it would be clear.
I would prefer that we test the recollection of the witness as to that subject.
Very well. I will cover that in my examination of the witness then.
Did you actually see the impact between the red truck and the blue car?
Yes, I did.
Did you observe anything after that initial impact?
Yes, I did.
What was that?
I saw the blue Chevrolet being pushed into the car in front of it.
Do you recall the make or model of that third automobile?
I cannot be positive whether I recognized it at the time of the impact or thereafter, but it was a dark brown old car.
Had you observed that big brown car prior to the accident?
Well, I obviously knew there was a car there, but I couldn't tell you if I noticed what model of car it was.
Okay, that's fair enough.
There was traffic that day, and I couldn't begin to remember all the different types of cars that were on the road with me.
Nothing further at this time.
Counsel, why don't you go ahead with your questions?
All right, thank you. Ms. Nichols, I represent the plaintiff in this action, Sherry Hartford. Do you know Ms. Hartford?
Not really. I mean, I believe I know who she is from the accident.
You didn't know her previous to the accident, did you?
I never met her.
Did you converse with Ms. Hartford at the scene of the accident?
She was taken away from the crash in an ambulance.
Objection, non-responsive.
Did you speak to Ms. Hartford after the crash?
No, I did not. I didn't want to approach her alone because I wasn't sure what I would discover.
What do you mean when you say that?
You should realize the impact was significant. I was not trained in any type of emergency first aid or anything like that. I didn't wish to get into something that, well, I saw it happen, and there was nothing I could do except telephone 911.
And did you fear that possibly a death had resulted?
I could not testify whether that particular thought ever crossed my mind, but I know that I was very thankful that I had changed lanes.
Do you recall talking to either Mr. Workman or Mr. Stanford at the scene of the accident?
I believe it was the driver of the old brown car that I spoke to.
That would be Mr. Stanford?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you speak to Mr. Workman at all, the driver of the truck?
Nobody could speak to him. They detained him in the back of the police cruiser.
The police promptly responded to the scene?
Yes, I dialed 911 from my cellular phone and reported the accident.
Did you also call the police department?
No, they are sent automatically when you call 911.
Objection, speculation, and conjecture.
It's not a guess. That is what 911 is. It is the police department and the paramedics.
Objection, no question pending.
Ms. Nichols, the objections are just our way to protect the record for trial. They pertain to legal issues to be decided later by a judge.
Well, that's fine, but I know how the 911 system works.
My objection is made for the record as speculation and lack of foundation.
That's fine, thank you.
So may I proceed?
Yes, sir.
I was asking you about your conversations with either Mr. Workman or Mr. Stanford at the scene. Do you recall any of the specifics of those conversations?
I know that I did not talk to Mr. Workman, the one in the police car. I spoke to the driver of the big brown car when the tow truck people were there.
Was your automobile towed?
No, I was not in the accident.
What did Mr. Stanford say to you as the area was being processed?
I told him he was lucky to be alive considering all the wreckage that we were seeing.
Objection, non-responsive.
What did Mr. Stanford say to you at that time?
He agreed with me that someone was watching out for him, and then he asked to borrow my cell phone to call his mother.
Did you loan him your telephone?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Miss Stone, I want to review the police report before I continue questioning, so why don't you proceed?
That's fine, I can wait.
I cannot find it right offhand, so go ahead.
All right, thank you. Ms. Nichols, I represent Mr. Workman, the driver of the truck.
Hello.
When you changed lanes just prior to the collision, at approximately what speed were you traveling?
I don't know exactly. That would be hard to estimate.
What is the speed limit on that street, the posted speed?
It varies depending on where you are.
Within 2 or 3 miles of the collision, what is the posted speed?
I believe it is about 35.
Were you traveling faster or slower than that?
When I started to slow down, I would estimate my speed at about 35.
Okay, at that moment, how far were you behind the Chevrolet?
I guess about half a block.
Well, try not to guess. Can you approximate the distance you were from that car?
If you don't know, just say so. That is a perfectly valid answer.
Or if you have an approximation, you can testify to that. It is just your best estimate.
Not being really confident with that, I would prefer not to estimate the distance.
Did you signal for your lane change prior to making that lane change?
Absolutely, I always do.
Subsequent to that movement, how much time elapsed before the collision?
Just a short time.
Do you recall the duration of time?
Not exactly. I would say about a minute or so.
Very well. Now, immediately following...
Wait a minute. It was probably shorter than a minute. Now that I am reflecting on it, I remember thinking that it was a close call for me to avoid being involved.
How many total impacts did you observe or hear?
I saw the truck crash into the car, and then it just kept moving. It was similar to a chain of cars. The truck was pushing them all down the road.
How many cars were involved in this accident, if you know?
I believe there were 5 altogether.
Are you positive of that?
No, not for sure.